regulations are a disaster.
All right, welcome back. This is Jason Wilcox. Once again, Treating Yourself Expo 2013. Here with Ted Smith with Hempology 101, Cannabis Buyers Clubs of Canada. And yeah, he's got his book to show us. He's going to talk about the Cannabis Digest and give us some information on the MMAR, the coalition, and his political fight. He's also done that to get us, to the point where we kind of are a little bit. We've covered quite a bit, so let's hear from Ted.
Okay, so I've worked on this book, Hempology 101. It took me 17 years to get into print. I began working in the field 18 years ago and wanted to tell the story of this plant and its history, so it took me that long to put it together, in part because I started a medical dispensary, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club, and that's kind of distracted me from it. But yeah, this book here is the most comprehensive book on the subject, I'd like to think. It covers the ancient history of the plant, the hemp, the medical uses, the prohibition of it, and our fight to revive it, including Canadian history and what's been happening with the MMAR and what's also been happening with Mark Emery and the hemp fields and stuff like that. So it's the only book that really covers Canada as well as what's happening around the world.
Excellent. That's been published as well, right?
Yeah, it's out there. It's available online at our store and in all sorts of places. Toronto Hemp Company.
I mean, clearly it's published, but I mean, it's available. I know it's available across Canada. Do we have it in the U.S. already?
I don't think it's anywhere in the U.S. yet. I've been plugging it in Canada mostly. Nobody's been onto it down there.
There you go, guys. So for the UK, Spain, all our friends over there, hook up. You want to check out the book? Contact us straight up out of BC, Canada.
That will be a really great occasion for us. It's in Vancouver, so you'll be able to come watch it over there as well. And yeah, so the Buyers Club actually, after that court case, Canada Revenue Agency came after me, and I hadn't been collecting or paying taxes, and so I've had to declare bankruptcy, and I've formed a non-profit and sold the club and turned it into a non-profit, which is really a dream come true. And it happened around the same time as my book coming out. So now I'm trying to kind of make a run of it with Hempology 101 and get the clubs across Canada and really around the world. We started at UVic. I teach a free non-credit lecture series there, and we've been doing that coming up 9 years, and that's on YouTube. Hempology.ca has got YouTube channels and all sorts of stuff. That's right, you were there the first years. And so yeah, we have Hempology going on at UVic. We're the largest student club there. We're now expanding. We have 8 schools across Canada and 5 provinces that we have Hempology clubs at, doing different things. And we're obviously looking for more. And I guess the other thing that we do with the Buyers Club was a newsletter that we've turned into a newspaper a few years ago, the Cannabis Digest. So it's really geared for medical patients. We print 10,000 of them and ship them across Canada to different dispensaries and head shops and try to keep people informed on what's happening in the industry. So yeah, we print that 4 times a year.
I was just sorry, it's the way the mic picks it up. I was just going to ask a couple questions for the viewers, because the case, just so people know, it's binding potentially to BC only, is my understanding. Is that correct?
At this point, the lower court decision doesn't extend outside of British Columbia, except to say that if someone was arrested in another province, they would be able to put their trial off until the conclusion of ours. They wouldn't have to get their own expert witnesses or go through what we did. They could just suspend their trial, so they'd never be found guilty, but it would be something that they could still be charged in other provinces. Actually, you can still be charged in BC. So it's really a good decision for Owen. The charges are gone, but we need it to go to the higher courts so that it can be binding on other provinces. The MMAR were brought into effect by a Court of Appeal decision in Ontario. We're at the very same level of court now that could write, or almost rewrite the regulations to force the government to include these derivatives. So that's something that we're counting on happening in many ways.
So what's your take on basically the MMPR regulations being proposed to, one, take away licenses to grow, and as well as the fact that they want to inflate the cost?
Well, the new regulations are a disaster. It's horrible what they're doing to patients, taking away their ability to grow their own medicine or find a caregiver to do it for them. It's something that we wish wish there were more obvious avenues to fight that than there appear to be. We have a majority Harper government. As long as they have power, there's little that it seems people can do. But hopefully the court proceedings and that you guys are working on will do something about that. But it's really important what they're doing, and the rules around the commercial production also seem to be quite restrictive, so that the average person or even the average dispensary probably won't be able to enter into this new market. You're going to have a couple $1 million, and there's really no way that the cost is going to be low enough for most patients to afford what they're consuming now if they're growing their own medicine. Because I was just talking to people looking at getting into it, and the costs are astronomical. They're not going to be able to sell it even comparable to what dispensaries like ours sell it for, because they've got so many extra costs, administrative costs and things on top of it. So they're going to, it's really going to be I think a feast and then famine, because there's going to be a number of companies trying to make a whole lot of money with this new program, and most patients are going to boycott it. If they don't keep growing their own, they're going to go to a dispensary, they're going to go to their buddy, but they're not going to pay taxes on top of taxes to these corporations.
So basically, if a gas war breaks out between the government and what they say is the underground, I guess it goes back to the 70s with only now mandatory minimums.
Well, the mandatory minimums are certainly a threat, to dispensaries. Most of us have more than that, or more than the minimal amounts. So, we'd be subject to some of the more severe mandatory minimums if we get raided and convicted. And there's no ways for judges to let us go, really, under the new system if we're found guilty. And so it is quite scary, and it may be that over time, if people are being thrown in jail for running dispensaries, that we don't see them continue to exist. I don't think there'll be many new ones come in once these new regulations come in. So
I would agree with that.
The old ones last, right? Hopefully, we can stand on our feet for a long time. But hopefully a new legal system comes in that makes it affordable, and in some ways, it would be awesome if the government did such a good job that dispensaries didn't need to be there. Unfortunately, I think the government's doing such a horrible job that the dispensaries will be needed more than ever after this comes into effect. But there will be some patients that insist on doing it legally, so that it's going to be interesting to see just how many people do convert into this new system, whether doctors cooperate with it, which is another big factor. The doctors are not happy at all with this new system, nor the old one, and so the doctors aren't cooperating either.
Well, that's the gateway factor. It's always been an issue because it's not in pharmacopoeia. So a lot of people in Canada, you may not know that without it being in pharmacopoeia, it's probably the gateway thing, and yeah, that is a big issue, certainly. Any other final closing remarks, Ted, about what's going on? Because it is a big issue. I mean, 2013, we've got legalization. What would you say, again, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but Washington or Colorado?
It's stunning what's happening down there in the States.
Model-wise for Canada, like if we could put it just hypothetically.
Geez, I sometimes get this confused. Colorado's the one that lets you grow your own. Okay. Well, to me, it seems ridiculous to have a system where people can buy it and not grow their own in some capacity. And so I would like to see a system that if you're growing it outdoors, you don't need any permits, and if you're growing it indoors, well, maybe you have to have an electrical inspection or something like that. Like I've thought of it much like a car license, right? That if you want to have the privilege of driving a car, well, you need to take a test to prove that you know how to do it. You get inspected, to make sure that it's being done properly. And I think there shouldn't be a problem with indoor growing. Outdoor growing, you shouldn't have to worry about any of that, right? You're growing a plant in your backyard.
Just the other rippers and stuff. But other than that, people are, that happens with corn and stuff already with farmers. So I don't see a big difference. But Ted, I wanted to thank you for coming on Cannabis in Canada, and treating yourself this year. What closing remarks? I mean, to me, it's a fabulous event. Never been here, but just
I've never been at anything like this myself either. either. In my 18 years of cannabis activism, this is the most incredible scene that I've ever been at, and just so happy to be here.
Right on. Thanks again, Ted. Cheers. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers, brother.
A business is blossoming at a hydroponic shop in BC. Sales have been smoking hot ever since 2 U.S. states legalized marijuana. The company, called Green Planet, carries everything anyone would need to grow plants, any kind of plants, indoors. In Colorado, it is now legal to have 6 marijuana plants in a secure area.